Okay, it's Anna here. You went silent. And suddenly everything changed. Not dramatic silence, not announced silence, not I'm never speaking to you again, performed silence, just silence. You stopped reaching out, stopped explaining yourself, stopped trying to make them understand, stopped filling the empty spaces with words that were falling on deaf ears anyway. You just stopped. And that stopping, that quiet withdrawal of your voice and your energy and your attention, it's doing something to them that all your words never could. It's creating a void shaped exactly like your presence used to fill. It's making them notice what they took for granted. It's driving them absolutely insane in ways they can't even articulate. Because when you were talking, they could dismiss you. When you were explaining, they could tune out. When you were trying, they could take it for granted that you'd always try. But your silence, they don't know what to do with your silence. It's loud in ways your words never were. It's powerful in ways your presence never was. It's undeniable, and they're losing their minds trying to figure out what it means. Welcome back, it's Anna, and tonight we explore the devastating power of strategic silence. When someone who always had access to you suddenly doesn't. When words stop and space begins. When the person who was always available becomes unavailable, and that unavailability shifts the entire dynamic. When your absence speaks louder than your voice ever did, let me reveal what your silence is currently doing to someone's peace of mind. In the brutal mathematics of human attention, we rarely value what we have reliable access to. When someone is always there, always available, always willing to engage, we stop seeing them as precious. We stop treating their presence like the gift it is. We take them for granted because we assume they'll always be there. And there's someone in your reality who made exactly that mistake with you. They got comfortable with your availability. They assumed your voice would always be there when they wanted it. They took your communication for granted because you were consistent, reliable, always willing to explain or engage or try again. It's possible you were that person for someone for months or years. The one who texted first, the one who reached out, the one who tried to maintain connection even when it felt one-sided, the one who explained your feelings and your perspective and your needs over and over, hoping eventually they'd understand. Some people are natural communicators. They believe in talking things through, in expressing themselves, in giving people chances to understand. They use their words generously because they value clarity and connection. And you might be exactly that kind of person. But there comes a point where words lose their power, where explaining becomes exhausting, where trying to make someone understand becomes a form of self-abandonment, where you realize that the problem isn't that they don't understand, it's that they don't care enough to change their behavior based on that understanding. And that's when silence becomes the only response that makes sense, not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as preservation, as the natural consequence of exhausting all other options. Let me speak into what the most powerful thing you did actually means. In this context, this reflection invites you to consider, when did you stop trying to make someone understand and just went quiet? The power wasn't in what you said. You'd already said everything that needed saying. The power was in stopping, in withdrawing the energy you'd been pouring into a connection that wasn't reciprocating, in redirecting your attention away from someone who wasn't valuing it. In the deep wisdom of energy management, sometimes the most radical act is simply stopping, not fighting, not defending, not explaining one more time, just stopping, turning your face away, investing your voice elsewhere, letting someone experience your absence instead of your presence. It's possible your silence is the first real boundary you've set with this person. Everything before was negotiations, explanations, attempts to make them see. But silence is non-negotiable. It doesn't ask for understanding. It doesn't require their agreement. It simply is. Some people only understand boundaries when they feel them. When someone stops being available and they suddenly have to experience the consequence of how they were treating that availability. When the person who was always there isn't there anymore and they feel the gap, you might have created exactly that kind of felt consequence. Your silence is teaching what your words couldn't. Your absence is showing what your presence was providing. Your withdrawal is revealing what they were taking for granted. And the lesson? It's landing. Hard. In ways that make them uncomfortable, in ways that force them to pay attention, in ways that make them realize they might have lost something they can't get back. This reflection invites you to consider, what were you trying to make someone understand before you went silent? Let me reveal what now it's driving them crazy specifically looks like. Crazy shows up as obsessive checking. They're looking at your social media more than they did when you were talking. They're asking mutual friends about you. They're noticing your absence in ways they never noticed your presence. They're tracking your activity, trying to understand what your silence means. It's possible someone is currently stalking your digital footprint, trying to decode your quietness. Are you angry? Are you done? Are you just busy? Are you moving on? Are you punishing them? Are you indifferent? They can't tell, and the not knowing is eating them alive. Some people never thought about you this much when you were available. But now that you're not, now that there's silence where there used to be communication, they can't stop thinking about it. Can't stop wondering. Can't stop trying to figure out what shifted and why and what it means for them. You might be occupying more mental real estate now than you ever did when you were actively trying to connect. Your silence is more compelling than your words. Your absence more magnetic than your presence. The void you left more powerful than anything you ever said. And they're discovering something uncomfortable, that they want your attention, that they miss your voice, that your communication mattered more than they realized, that they took something valuable and treated it like it was nothing and now it's gone and they feel the loss. This reflection invites you to consider, have you noticed someone who used to ignore you now trying to get your attention? Let me illuminate the specific ways your silence is disrupting their peace. They're reaching out more, testing, sending messages that don't require responses but clearly want responses, liking your posts, commenting, creating reasons to interact that they never created before. Suddenly they're the one initiating when you were always the one initiating before. In the reversal of pursuit dynamics, your silence has shifted the power. You're no longer chasing, which means if there's going to be connection, they have to chase. And chasing is uncomfortable for people who are used to being pursued. It forces them into vulnerability they've been avoiding. It's possible you're witnessing exactly this role reversal right now. The person who was casual is becoming intense. The person who was distant is becoming present. The person who took you for granted is suddenly trying very hard to get your attention, not because you asked them to, because your silence is demanding it. Some people don't know how to handle someone going quiet on them. It threatens their sense of control, makes them feel rejected, activates their abandonment wounds, creates anxiety that wasn't there when you were reliably available. You might be triggering exactly those responses. Your silence is pushing buttons they didn't know they had, making them feel things they've been protecting themselves from feeling, forcing them to confront that they actually care more than they were willing to admit. And that confrontation, it's uncomfortable. It's destabilizing. It's making them act in ways that reveal exactly what your silence is exposing. That you mattered, that you matter. That losing access to you is not the relief they pretended it would be. This reflection invites you to consider, what has someone done since you went silent that they never did when you were talking? Let me speak to what they're actually missing about your communication. It's not just the words, it's what the words represented, your investment, your care, your willingness to bridge distance, your effort to maintain connection, your consistency in showing up even when they weren't showing up back. In the specific loss of consistent communication, people often realize too late what that communication was providing. It wasn't just information exchange, it was proof someone cared, evidence someone was thinking about them, demonstration that someone valued connection enough to maintain it. It's possible your silence is removing that proof, that evidence, that demonstration, and its absence is creating doubt they never had before. Did I matter to them? Do I matter now? What does it mean that they're not reaching out anymore? Some people never questioned their importance to you when you were communicating regularly. Your consistency was confirmation. But now that you're silent, they're questioning everything. Their value to you, their place in your life, whether they matter at all. You might be creating exactly that uncertainty. And uncertainty is powerful. It makes people confront what they were taking as given, makes them realize that connection isn't automatic, that access isn't guaranteed, that people who've been patient can reach their limit. And reaching that limit, choosing silence over continued effort, that's you communicating something clearer than any words could. That you're done accepting less than you deserve. That you're no longer available for one-sided dynamics. That they need to show up differently or accept your absence. This reflection invites you to consider, what was your communication providing that your silence is removing? Let me reveal what happens when someone finally breaks their silence. Some people maintain silence indefinitely. It becomes permanent boundary. The relationship ends not with explosion, but with quiet withdrawal. And that's valid. That's sometimes exactly what needs to happen. But others use silence strategically, as space, as boundary, as consequence, but not necessarily as ending. They're quiet until the other person demonstrates changed behavior, until there's evidence of actual shift, until silence has done its teaching work. It's possible you're in that second category. Your silence isn't permanent rejection. It's powerful pause. It's creating space for someone to recognize what they were taking for granted. It's waiting to see if they'll rise to meet you differently than they did before. And if they do, if your silence achieves what your words couldn't, if they start showing up with the effort and care and consistency you were asking for all along, then maybe communication resumes, but from a different place, with different dynamics, with them understanding that your voice isn't something they're entitled to, but something they need to earn. Or maybe they don't rise to it. Maybe they stay comfortable with your silence. Maybe they're fine without you. And that tells you everything you need to know. That silence wasn't powerful enough to make them care, which means nothing would have been, which means silence transitioning to complete disconnection is exactly right. This reflection invites you to consider, is your silence permanent or conditional? Let me speak to what you need to protect while maintaining silence. There's temptation to break silence prematurely, to give in when they reach out, to explain yourself when they ask what's wrong, to resume communication just because they're finally showing interest. But breaking silence too soon undermines its power. It's possible you're feeling exactly that temptation right now. Someone who ignored you is suddenly paying attention, and part of you wants to respond immediately, wants to reward the attention you've been craving, wants to go back to what's familiar, even though familiar wasn't working. Some people break silence at the first sign of interest from the other person. They were waiting for any indication of care, and when it shows up, they flood back with communication. But that teaches the wrong lesson. It teaches that ignoring you works, that taking you for granted has no lasting consequence, that they can resume access whenever they choose. You might need to hold your silence longer than is comfortable, not to be cruel, but to ensure the lesson lands completely. To make sure any shift in their behavior is real and sustained rather than temporary reaction to your withdrawal. And while you're holding silence, you need to be genuinely investing elsewhere, in yourself, in other connections, in building a life so full that whether they show up differently or not becomes less central to your well-being. This reflection invites you to consider, what are you building in the space your silence has created? Let me close by speaking to the ultimate power of your silence. Your silence is teaching multiple lessons at once. It's teaching them what your presence was worth. It's teaching you that you can survive without their validation. It's teaching both of you what the relationship looks like when it's not held together by your one-sided effort. And those lessons, they're necessary, even if they're painful, even if the relationship doesn't survive them, because you needed to know you could stop. They needed to feel consequence. The dynamic needed to be disrupted. May you trust your silence. May you protect your peace. May you know your worth doesn't require their recognition. The silence is speaking. The lesson is landing. The power is yours. The most powerful thing you did was stop talking. You withdrew energy that wasn't being valued. You stopped explaining to someone who wasn't listening. You went silent and created space where there was only your voice before. Now it's driving them crazy. They're feeling your absence in ways they never felt your presence. They're reaching out in ways they never did when you were available. They're recognizing what they took for granted now that it's gone. Trust this. Trust that your silence is more eloquent than any words you could speak. Trust that creating space for someone to miss you is more powerful than filling every space with your presence. Trust that you deserve someone who values your voice without needing to lose it first. Your silence is a statement. Your absence is powerful. Your peace is non-negotiable. Stay quiet. Stay strong. Stay clear. They'll either rise to meet you or prove they never deserved access to you in the first place. Either way, you win.